Are the Dallas Stars noticeably weaker right now than they were last season? Or should they be given the benefit of the doubt?
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, forward producer of 105 Through the Fan. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a home run this season. Are the Dallas Stars much weaker this season than they were a year ago right now? Let me know in the comments below, because Daily Faceoff thinks so. They listed the top 5 teams that are noticeably weaker going into the upcoming season, and the Stars have made that list. So let's debate. Are the Stars much weaker than they were a year ago? Let me know, Stars fans, in the comments below. Also, Stars fans, Texas hockey fans, it looks like the NHL is coming to Texas. Maybe 2 teams are coming to Texas in the next decade, but Houston and Austin, one of those cities is going to get an NHL team in the next 4 years. That's how soon it could happen. More on that in just a moment. But also, I have something at the end of today's show, which has been rattling in my brain about the potential of loaning players in the NHL like they do in soccer. Now, this is just a pipe dream and something maybe completely bonkers, but I just wanted to kick it around and maybe get some feedback from those of you. As always, thank you so much for love and support on each and every episode of Locked On Stars. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Subscribe right now. We're over 5,000 subscribers. Let's get ready for the upcoming season. We're just about a month away, a little less than a month away from preseason hockey. Stars and Blues on the 19th, I believe, is the very first preseason game. So looking forward to that. But this is from Daily Faceoff.com. 5 NHL teams that look noticeably weaker going into 2026-27 from Matt Larkin. And the reason I think maybe this is up to debate to some is because the Stars were really banged up last year. And I think it's easy to forget that, especially in that series against Minnesota. Now, when you're in the series and when you're talking about the outcomes and the results of certain games in that series, you can't necessarily worry about the injuries to Ropé Hintz and Miro Heiskanen coming back from an injury, having to get back into the flow of things. You just can't worry about that. Everybody's banged up to some degree. Yes, some teams are affected more than others, but when you're in the fire, so to speak, you can't talk about that. Everybody's banged up, and you got to find a way to win. But the Stars are really banged up. So, yes, they've had some issues. They've had some problems. They've had some cap restraints this offseason, which forced them to lose some productive players. But they're still getting healthy guys back. And some of the guys that missed that series against Minnesota are going to be back at the start of the season and can maybe still provide something for the Dallas Stars. So it goes on to say, Joel Kiviranta, that's their one import, and then outporting Maverick Bourque, Michael Bunting, Lyubushkin, and Petrovic. It says the Jason Robertson saga played out brutally for the Stars GM Jim Nill. For one, knowing Robertson's next AAV would deservedly exceed the cap space Dallas had, Nill had no choice but to dump an ascending young forward in 2025-26 first liner in Bourque. First liner is a bit of a stretch. This individual must not watch a ton of Dallas Stars hockey. First liner maybe for the Predators, but not on the Dallas Stars. There is somebody named Ropé Hintz, with the Predators also eating Lyubushkin's contract in a deal, but for that move to only yield a 1 year. It goes on to mention that the Stars are banking on 34-year-old Tyler Seguin returning from a torn ACL to help them out on offense a lot more than they probably want to admit. Now, I think that is true. The key to the Stars' offensive output could be Tyler Seguin. Now, I think some of this comes from a more doom and gloom perspective. Yeah, the Stars had to lose Bourque. I wouldn't say Bourque is a first liner, not on Dallas. Ropé Hintz, Wyatt Johnston, those are the top two centers on the Dallas Stars. There are 30 other teams in the NHL that would like to have that number one and number two center iceman. Maybe not 30, let's just safely say 25. So I think the Bourque departure may be a bit hyperbolic, although let's be fair, I've been hyperbolic about it. I love Maverick Bourque, but I always saw him as, third line winger, kind of middle six. Let's just say middle six winger. He probably wasn't going to play center on the Stars this upcoming season, but he'll get to do that in Nashville. And maybe he does turn into that first liner. I don't think it was going to be here in Dallas. Now, also, Robertson could sign a new deal in January, and it's all sunshine and rainbows again. But that is a risk, what the Stars did with Robertson. To sign the one-year deal, he could potentially leave, and you get nothing for him. Although, I'm starting to view it from a perspective that could be a good thing in some ways. Not great, but that's still $12 million plus that you're not going to have to give to one individual. Because let's face it, his asking price could go up drastically. The report was, $14 million? It could be 16, 17 million. And as we saw over the offseason, Seattle was willing to give him a lot of change, a lot of money, and he wasn't willing to take it. Now, does a more contender, a more competitive team decide to jump in? I don't know. But look, Matt Duchene, I think he can still give you 60 to 70 points. He had a lot of juice, and we know when him and Seguin are together, they can produce. Ropé Hintz coming back is massive for Dallas. Hopefully he stays healthy. That's always a question mark, but we know what he can do, and we saw it last year. He was having a really, really good season. It's easy to forget, and unfortunately he went down, and the Stars were left reeling a bit. Now, the depth is not there, of course, but let's face it, like Bourque, out of all the players that departed, Bourque was a huge hit. It was a big hit. Bunting, he never got settled in Dallas. I think he could have been utilized much better than what Glenn Goltson and company did, but it could have been much better. Again, didn't do much. Lyubushkin was more of a negative. Petrovic, good player, but he's a seventh defenseman. He's a seventh defenseman on Dallas. I know he played a little bit more this past year. Those aren't massive losses, and it opens the door for younger individuals, I think, and younger players to potentially step up. Justin Rutskovian had such a big year. His role could increase. And you look at even Kyle Capobianco, his role could increase. Arttu Huru, his role could increase. And the Stars were a very good defensive team last year. They need to tweak and adjust how they go about their offensive attack and how they hold on to pucks. Their possession has to be much, much better. But they brought in Joakim Raanta. I just think there's a really good core still there. And yeah, the Stars maybe misplayed the whole Robertson thing, but it's not like the Stars lost Robertson. Now that would have been a huge blow. But Robertson is back. And yeah, they have Mikko Rantanen. And they have Wyatt Johnston. That is a really, really, really top elite first line group, however you really want to kind of categorize it. And then you got to add in Ropé Hintz, Matt Duchene, he's still kicking it. That's a good core the Stars have. And I think the defense will just be fine. I think the defense will be improved because Harley's going to play better. I think Lundqvist is only going to continue to get more settled. He was really consistent last year. I think he's able to keep that up. Now, we know the third pair has questions, but that's always been an issue for Dallas, and they've always found a way to win 50 games the last couple of seasons. So I think they do deserve a little bit of slack because they still were really good last year, and they would have been maybe a touch better if they had some of their normal individuals in that series against Minnesota. And when they have been healthy, they've been great. Now, that's always a question mark. But are they really much weaker than they have been in other years? Yeah, on paper, sure. And we kind of thought that last year. And that was a new coach. and a new perspective, new approach, and they still found a way to be at the top of the Western Conference. I'd expect him to sort of be there again. Injuries always play a part, so we'll see how it all shakes out. But I don't know if the Stars are noticeably or much weaker than maybe Daily Faceoff is making it out to be. And I have been a tad critical of the Dallas Stars, to say the least, this offseason. They threw the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm not going to get into all the details, but they threw in the Vegas Golden Knights. They actually threw in the Colorado Avalanche and the Buffalo Sabres and Anaheim Ducks. So we'll see how those 5 teams fare. Those are 5 playoff teams last year. 5 playoff teams, and one of them went to the Cup. One of them went to the Western Conference Final. So we'll see how this list looks maybe in April of next year. Well, the Dallas Stars could have more competition in their own state. Houston, get ready. You're getting a hockey team, an NHL team, very soon it seems like. More on that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a home run today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with Daily Dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another way to have fun and just stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. There's just certain players where it just feels like every at-bat, something big could happen. I think you could say that about Yordan Alvarez of the Houston Astros. You can say that maybe about Sal Stewart of the Cincinnati Reds. You just can choose these individuals to go deep, put $5, sprinkle a little money on them, and boom, you can win and get extra winnings to play on FanDuel. Just keeps every day more exciting throughout the MLB season. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a home run. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. We are getting closer and closer to the Dallas Stars having another opponent in the Western Conference and right in their own backyard. Yes, another team to the Lone Star State. Bill Daly told The Athletic, Deputy Commissioner of the NHL, that a 33rd franchise to Texas could have happened as soon as the end of the year. Daly said he's expecting the league to get an update on the process from the group working with Houston billionaire Dan Friedkin in the coming weeks. Friedkin's Pursuit Sport has already agreed to pay a $2 billion expansion fee to bring a team to either Houston or Austin, pending the ability to build an arena in one of those markets and secure final approval from the NHL's Board of Governors. Daly did say they are moving forward in Texas at the NHL's European Media Tour. I expect ultimately we'll be in a position to bring something to the board to get their view on it. So that's proceeding at a pace. We'll probably get together with the group again in September and kind of see where they are in the process and what they want us to do. Houston, by the way, is the 4th largest market in the United States. It goes on to say it's the original focus when the NHL first started exploring expansion with Friedkin, but Austin seems to be kind of in there as well. And there's actually active talks about potentially having 2 other teams in tech, like Houston and Austin, believe it or not. And they hope to actually have a Texas team within 3 years. They're projecting the ability to start play in 2029-30. There's also discussions in Phoenix, believe it or not. Again, there's also Atlanta. Of course, the Coyotes still have their name. They're kind of dormant, so that could always be another possibility if they come back. And we'll have a couple of maybe more expansion teams. Now, I know you, maybe other individuals, have opinions on the expansion and what that means just for the overall talent of the league. And Daly did address that as well. There's a quote that says, "I think we have enough boots on the ground and experience to know kind of where hockey skill is today and the players who can play and have proved they can play in the National Hockey League," Daly said. "The source and supply of players is not a concern. The dilution of talent is an argument against this expansion I don't think holds any water today. Does it support 4-team expansion? That would be a question for me. Certainly a 2-team expansion doesn't raise any concerns. Now, I think that's fair to say when you look at just players, but goaltenders, do you really have another crop of great goaltenders or even good goaltenders? We see how teams can just get bogged down in a revolving door of awful goaltending, and when you get in that cycle, it's hard to get out of. You just have to have a good goalie. It's the end-all be-all in this sport, and if you can't make it work at that position, then it's going to be hard to make it work in front of them. So it'll be fascinating to see. Now, I think it is a good thing for the NHL to come to Houston or even Austin. I think that'd be good for the Stars, just a regionality of it. Houston has a ton of hockey history. There is like roots there. There's a lot of fans of hockey in Houston. Maybe it doesn't rival as much as Dallas, but you know, the Houston Aeros used to be there. They just got a null team, which I think is going to do really, really well in Richmond, just south. So there's already a buzz about it, and I think it would actually be a good thing for the Stars. I don't know how the Stars would view it, but I think that would be big. It just would continue to grow the game, and I think it says a lot about the state of Texas too. I just think it's cool that the NHL, like the National Hockey League, a sport revolving around hockey, a sport that is hockey, it may have 2 teams in Texas out of all states, like Texas. I know there's 2 in California and a bunch out east, but 2 in Texas. It's pretty stinking cool, and I would be all for it. Certainly wouldn't be a fan of that team, but I'd be all for it. Some other quotes in the Athletic article says, I view Austin to be similar to our decision to move into Las Vegas at a time where the other leagues weren't considering it, in part because of the size of the market and the mid-sized nature of it, he added. We needed to satisfy ourselves that there was kind of sufficient fan base there that would embrace the club locally. We probably got lucky along the way, but as it turned out, the city is in love with the franchise. I would even distinguish it from at least football with respect to whether the Raiders fan base really exists in Las Vegas or whether it's a tourist fan base. Now, Austin's interesting too, just because there is the Texas Stars in Cedar Park. So I don't know if the Stars would be all gung-ho on the NHL going to Austin. Could potentially take away from that fan base. I'm sure Austin residents would like to have an NHL team there, but if you're the Dallas Stars and you have the Texas Stars in Cedar Park, which is a phenomenal organization, just always kicking butt. They do extremely well. I think maybe that would take away from some of that. So that could potentially be a bit of a conflict if you're the Stars. Now, of course, the market's important, right? Television, the size of the market, that's going to play a big role. And that's why Houston's top 5 city in population, I think, in the United States. Somewhere around there, if not like in the top 3. A lot of people there, just as much as Dallas. So there is a huge amount of just people, right? Customers, consumers that you could bring the game of hockey to. So, it looks like within even a year, and then maybe playing in 4 or 5 years, a team in Houston, which would be crazy. I would be intrigued to see if there's going to be any realignment with the divisions. We've kind of seen that. I've seen that 2 or 3 times in my lifetime already. Just realignment. Where would the Stars fall in that? Where would that Houston team join? It'd have to be in the West, right? I don't think it'd be an East team. So it'd be really, really intriguing to see how that all works out. But hey, Stars fans, if you live in Houston, you may be getting a new team. Would you drop your allegiance to the Dallas Stars? That's what I want to know. For you Stars fans out there, maybe from Houston, maybe South Texas, maybe even up there in Amarillo, the Panhandle, maybe out, Odessa and West Texas. Would you drop your allegiance? East Texas. Would you drop your allegiance for the Stars? and cheer on another team in the Lone Star State? Let me know. I'd be curious to know. All right. Let's get into a thought that just crossed my mind. And this could be really crazy. But now that I think about it, and you're talking about the dilution of talent, could this be a solution to a dilution of talent? Loaning NHL players to other teams, just like they do in the game of soccer, or football, if you will. More on that in just a moment. Stick with me. Alrighty, this could be a total misfire, but it had me pondering this question for quite some time when I was watching the Premier League this weekend. Premier League's back, and I've caught on to the Premier League the last couple of years, and in soccer, football, you can loan players. And I thought that could be something really fascinating to potentially bring to the NHL, or maybe just sports in general, because you just don't see that in any other sport, if I'm not mistaken. It's just football. It's just soccer. But I get it too. It is a worldwide game, and there's thousands of teams in every country. There's just so many teams. So it makes more sense, of course. But, you watch the Premier League and they're like saying like, oh, this player was on loan with maybe even another Premier League team, or they were, somewhere in Italy, they were somewhere else. And now, you kind of develop them and then they're back playing for that club. So with all the expansion talk, I'm kind of talking myself in this, and I didn't even think about this when I wanted to have this segment. But the dilution of talent, that's a worry, right? The dilution of talent is a worry for the NHL overall. If they, keep expanding and there are 34, 35 teams, whatever it may be. But wouldn't that be kind of cool if you could loan players to other NHL teams? Maybe you could loan them to other AHL teams to get reps, to maybe get NHL time. And, I think about a player like Matej Blumel from a couple of years ago. Was having a huge season in the AHL with the Texas Stars. But Dallas, the Stars, the NHL, was just so loaded. He just was never given the opportunity to play on the NHL club. He just didn't get the opportunity because the Stars were just so deep. There just really wasn't any room for him. And on maybe 20 other teams, he'd have the opportunity to play in the NHL. And of course, the Stars, remember, they brought him up. Then they had to send him back down when they got healthy bodies back. And then they lost him to the Boston Bruins because he had to, go down on waivers. And the waiver wire is part of that to, keep players that could play on the NHL team from getting, log jammed by good ones. But, like if the Stars were able to send Matej Blumel, let's just, could they send him to the Blackhawks? And he could play for the Blackhawks, get some time in the NHL potentially. And, and maybe he gets, a shot to come back to Dallas and then play on the club. Like this year would have been maybe a season where Blumel could, crack the lineup on a consistent basis. And when you talk about expansion, maybe the dilution of talent, well, then you can actually send players that are capable of playing the NHL, but maybe they're not getting into lineups because, one team's very good, like a Colorado, like take the Stars for that matter, where it's like, man, they're just so deep. These young guys who are pretty good maybe should get a crack at the NHL. They just can't. Bourque and Stankova, let's face it, Bourque and Stankova would have been called up, months, maybe a year before they actually were, if they weren't playing on the Stars, which can also be a benefit. It's also positive in some ways. I think both players would say it's probably benefit to their career. So there's pros and cons, but I think it would actually be pretty neat to see. You get, it's more player movement. I don't know how that works contractually. Maybe that's just impossible to do. I don't know. But I'm curious your thoughts on that. Just the question of loaning players. They do it, out in Europe. I think that'd be kind of cool because, sometimes you just got young guys. Maybe you just need to get more time somewhere else, and then you can still reap the benefits of that development. But again, then I guess if you're an owner, like, why would we develop another team's player? And in soccer, there's obvious tiers. So again, much different, of course, because, there's different tiers, there's different leagues that have more gravitas. So it's not like, at the end of the day, if a player does well, they're going to move up regardless, whether they're playing that team anyways. So I get the dynamics are maybe a bit different, and you wouldn't want to be developing other teams' players. But I was just having that thought rattle around my brain. So I think there could be pros and cons to it, but I think it would be cool if you could make it work. Maybe with a certain player, maybe with, certain AHL players, or maybe if you're drafted within like a 5-year span, maybe there's some caveats you could do to make it work where maybe it doesn't affect the NHL level as much, but it could potentially help the farm systems of certain teams because there is a lot of good players. Maybe some players are missing out on opportunities that they would get in other organizations. Anyways, that is just my 2 cents and something that was rattling in my brain this weekend because yeah, I don't know. Look, it's the dog days of summer. There's not a ton to talk about, so things like these pop into my head when I'm laying in bed at night, and it's nice to verbalize those on Locked On Stars. And I have a great platform to do it. So thank you to all of you that stuck around and listened to this part. Big shout out to you. Please subscribe, hit that notification bell, never miss an episode of Locked On Stars. Another brand new week, and we'll be going back to everyday uploads starting September 1st. So right around the corner next week now, which is pretty crazy. So we'll start going back to, every day, get ready for training camp and all that good stuff. But expect maybe 2 or 3 more uploads this week as we continue to round out the month of August. It's really flown by, it feels like. Then again, I moved. I've been kind of bouncing around. Just feels like the days have flown by. So that's all I have for you today. Stars fans, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next episode. So long.